Hello, everybody, and welcome to Readers of Lost Art. And are you putting this on your channel, James?
No, not today.
Oh, we're not good enough for you, right?
No, I forgot to do it.
So we have James Cox in the house, and we have Stuart, Stugor. What are your other euphemistic names, Stuart?
Was it the protagonist?
Nice.
Well, what I was going to do, this was all Stuart's fault because we were due to do Proust, and then yesterday, Stuart can fill you in on the details because I'm barely conscious these days, but there was a premiere of the trailer for Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, and up until this point, Stuart and I think, tell me whether I'm speaking wrongly for the two of us, we've been prepared to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I thought it could be a half decent effort because he's such a good director. Having seen the trailer and having seen the interview he did on Stephen Colbert, The Late Show, which, God, he's awful, Colbert. He's not a patch on David Letterman, but that's another old person rant. But I honestly think it's beyond my worst nightmares. It is truly going to be an abomination, and hopefully we'll get into that, and James will defend why he thinks it's still going to be a brilliant film. So, James, over to you, because you can only be here for half an hour, can't you?
Yeah, I've got about half hour, 45. I did a reaction to the trailer on my channel yesterday as well, and I think kind of like yourselves, I went into it, or I've kind of gone into this thinking it could be all right, because if anyone can do the Odyssey justice, I think it can only be Nolan in the current crop of like sort of Hollywood directors. But having watched the trailer, it just felt a little bit off, and I can't really put my finger on why. I think there's some issues that I think I have with it. Sort of in my head, I'm still stumped. Matt Damon being Odysseus, I just don't see him as Odysseus. I think maybe some of the other cast is a little bit questionable as well. I kind of defended Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson slightly in my reaction trailer, because basically my point on that was, if you'd have said to me 2 years ago that Robert Pattinson or Tom Holland would be in something as prestigious as the Odyssey, I would have gone, not a chance. I wouldn't have seen. But I think Robert Pattinson has kind of climbed his way out of the sort of Twilight.
Sorry to cut across you, James, but of what I've seen, Pattinson actually looks good.
Yeah, I think he looks good.
And he's got a bit of charisma. He looks. The only other person I thought would have been even better would be, remember old Alan Rickman?
Yeah,
he would have been amazing as Antinous, because I don't think the Sheriff of Nottingham has ever been beaten both camp. No, seriously, for both camp and menacing,
snivelling, menacing, sneering.
No, and that's what I thought that line was, that made-up line about you snivelling bast, Stuart. It's just like, that was Alan Rickman having fun. I'm thinking, this is the Odyssey, you plonker. But anyway, sorry, James. I
agree with you. I think Pattinson probably might come across as the strongest actor in this film. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know until the film comes out and we can watch it properly. But I thought, the interesting visuals. I thought it doesn't look like an ugly film, which obviously you don't expect a Nolan film to look ugly. Don't get me wrong. But in the current sort of crop of Hollywood, what it gives us these days is you have that hyper realism. You have that really really dark, can barely see anything. That sort of Netflix aesthetic that we're all kind of really used to these days. I didn't really get that so much from this. I thought it looked like a good film, like potentially a very good-looking film. But I think the main issue is that if it was any other film, we would probably be like, yeah, it's probably going to get A star across the board. But because it's the Odyssey, I'm not sure if it's going to fit into the film format. And I've just seen earlier that it's going to be under 2 hours.
You're kidding.
Just over 2 hours, maybe like 2 hours 5 minutes. So I'm not sure how he's going to squeeze
could I jump off from your use of the word good looking and ask you both a personal question? And maybe I'm sharing too much at this point, but you're given the scenario. You're on a abandoned island with Charlie. Is it Charlie Theron?
Charlize Theron, yeah.
I'll call her Charlie. I think she's been pretentious with a name like that.
Charlie
Theron is on a island with you. Yeah. And the other option is you risk life and limb to get back to Anne Hathaway. I'm staying on the island forever. Am I being unreasonable? Because that's the biggest continuity error in the film so
There's
far.
an argument made in the original text, though, in Homer's original text, that actually that there was a reason why he was staying on the island. And I mean, in some versions he has two kids with Calypso. So yes, some argument to be made that maybe he was quite happy.
Have you seen the mumblecore bit in the trailer? Where I think she's trying to say on what then, and Charlie Theron says, "And then." It's awful. It's like articulate woman.
I think that's something that I skipped over in my review, really, of the trailer, because I was really just hyper focused on what it looked like and just a complete reaction to what I was seeing, because I did it a completely blind watch through. But having watched it back, yeah, the dialogue is extremely.
That's Nolan's thing now, though. He's deliberately stated that he wants the dialogue to recede into the background. The script is secondary to the visuals, which it completely goes against the whole ethos of Greek poetry, of epic poetry.
And talking also about Greek epic poetry, PP Pant J in Texas and I are discussing what my fronts are in the comment section. So normally Stuart lowers the tone, but today it's me. Can I just share something? I've had a terrible night. I wasn't overindulging, but last night I had it was a vintage Belgian sour beer.
Oh, like a Goerze, what were they called? Goerze.
Yeah, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, I had stomach cramps.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
No, seriously, I haven't had stomach pain since I was a kid like that.
Those things are basically like probiotics, like times 1,000, because you've got all the live cultures in them and everything.
Yeah, so Odysseus, all right. I had to travel for 10 years, but God's sake, I was in pain. If only they'd have given Odysseus, Poseidon could have given him a Belgian, slightly dodgy sour beer. And that would have been a bloody trial, I tell you. But anyway, I'm being slightly narcissistic.
He just wants to go home in this latest film, though, He's just a little bit homesick, I think.
I'm looking for the lines. Yeah, that's it. Have you got the image, Stuart, of
I've got it. Yeah,
the one where I'm in the film?
Yeah. Wait. I did have the image, and then the image stuff.
There you go. I was saying off camera, that's me outside Tesco's with my dog, asking for money to get a bus home. It does look, on the left especially.
Yeah, it is you.
It's got my Rolf Harris, Shipman, who else? Fritzl. It's got all those people in it, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It has.
But I'd be shouting, "Let me stay at home. I don't want to go
out.
Do I have to go to the dentist?" But I'm just looking at some of the to be serious for a second. Stop messing around, Stuart.
It's your fault.
I was looking at dialogue. So he has, at this point, he says, "Help me go home." I think I've emoted better than he does in the film. At another point, he says, "I'll be bringing it all," which is like Arnie Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
I'm bringing it for you. Calypso, let me go. Maria.
To the galleon.
Oh, bravo, James. Absolutely, yeah.
Listen, that says, scene.
Then he goes
See you at the party, Telemachus.
Then he goes all Clint Eastwood. "No one can keep me from home, not even the gods."
It does, yeah. Oh my God.
What else have we got? So this is all from the... Oh, yeah, my favourite is the Rob Pattinson character. So it's Antinous, I think, in the original. Yeah. "You're pining for a daddy you didn't even know, like some snivelling bar steward." Which is just random made-up film noir shunted into the Odyssey. And then my favourite, I think... actually, my second favourite is... "My dad is coming home."
Yeah, that's it. My daddy's going to beat you up. It's
then
like playground stuff. It is.
There's about to be that they're running across the plain to engage in hand-to-hand combat. The armies running at each other. One of the most profound, dangerous, and bowel-loosening moments of your life. And in order to motivate his men, Odysseus or Matt Damon comes out with these immortal words: "Let's go."
Come on, lads!
Hey! He has a grin on his face as well when he does. If you like pause the video, I'm going to see if I can get the video because I haven't downloaded the video to bring it up. And it's like he kind of looks at the screen. Here we go. and it's like he's like, "Hey, let's go." It's
Well,
like,
how inarticulate is that?
Mm.
oh, it's
Let's
ridiculous.
go.
It's
Yeah,
just,
I'm gonna share the screen.
That's like an 80s pop song, isn't it? Hey ho, let's
Yeah,
go.
it really is.
that sounds fun.
Mute website notifications.
I've just written
Here
a
it is.
classic.
Yeah.
Can we see
Fun
it?
I'd be careful because copyright strike with Universal. They're not very friendly.
There is.
Should we not do that then, Stuart?
I think you could show it, just don't play it.
I think you can share like images, still images. There we go.
Right.
Well, hey, let's go.
Yay!
Bringing it all is pretty bad.
Well, there's other
Bringing it
bits as
all.
well. There's other bits. The daddy thing is
Well, that's a
Daddy's
lot of
coming
discussion. Yeah, a lot of discussion online is about the script and like the use of just very simple terms. A lot of people are worried, thinking it's kind of going to have that kind of Netflix dumbing down, where they've just made the script as simple as possible, and every 5 minutes the characters are going to be explaining the plot. You know, what are we doing now? Well, we're doing this. We're going home.
It's
What
going
we're
to be
doing now?
fun.
My daddy's coming back.
It's going to be fun when they're on the ships. Like, right, Troy's down. Great. Should we go now? Yeah, we're going to go to the boat now. It's like, what? Are they going to do that for 2 hours? Oh, look,
Worry.
Cyclops. Yay. What did you think about the Titans and stuff that were in there, the Cyclops and whatnot?
Well, yeah, I don't think we really have the full story of that yet, because I think that's what he's been coy about the most. About a year ago, the speculation was that there was going to be some kind of, I guess, like element of subjectivity. So it would be Odysseus recalling like what happened to him. You know, the gods attacked him, but the gods would be manifested in like natural, nature. So the Cyclops would just basically be a big bloke that he remembers being very big as a Cyclops. The whirlpool would be just, a literal whirlpool. Poseidon would just be, the sea. But there's elements here to suggest that there's monsters in it, and I think he hinted in the Colbert interview that this was going to be a little like fantasy. So we don't know. I mean, I think everything's still kept under wraps. I mean, we didn't see.
Well,
we
what we
didn't
do
see,
know, though, Stu, sorry to interrupt, is
yeah, go.
the guys in the armor who look like they'd come from Games of Thrones.
It's like RoboCop, yeah.
Yeah, they Lastriganians in the actual epic. So they're a giant people, and later on when we get all serious, when James has gone, I might read you the section, which is quite good in the original, but they're basically crazed Dionysian type, basically me in my sweatpants. They wear animal skins, and the idea that they'd have, beautifully soldered, armor that
polished
looks silver.
armor.
Yeah, when they're supposed to be basically like rabid hobos. It's again, and also all they do, they attack Odysseus' men and they throw rocks. And the leader, I think, eats one of the men when they turn up at his dinner hall. It's just random, really extreme, but the way it's shown in the film, they're marching in serried ranks. And it looks like Game of Thrones. They throw them against a tree. And it's just so unnecessarily. You could have depicted what's in the Odyssey, and it would have made really good visual images.
I saw online somebody said it looks like Jason and the Argonauts versus the Cybermen.
Well, this is in the Colbert interview. One of the things he said is, I've got a direct quote here because I'm nerdy. I wrote it down. He talked about throwing everything at the screen and see what sticks sort of way when he was describing his method. And there's forgive me if I've misremembered, but there's a Robin Hood version. They made loads of versions at one point. And I remember being in the cinema, and there were ships coming together, and that was Indiana and the Indiana Jones image. There was a little bloke on a horse, and that was The Hobbit. And it was like 5 different film references were in one Robin Hood film. And I was thinking, what has this got to do with Robin Hood? Oh, and then it was like
Men in Tights. Robin Hood.
And then it was like Dunkirk. All these arrows were whizzing through the water, and I'm thinking, well, that's Dunkirk reference. and on, and he was very honest. Throw everything at the screen and see what sticks. That's what he's bloody hell has he done that?
There was
And
a
this
point.
is an auteur.
There was a point when in that reaction that I did, where I was praising the use of practical effects, because I think the Cyclops is an animatronic, and I was like, yeah, it's good to see that he's not using CGI. But then when he gets to that point that we were just talking about with the the big boys in armor, there's a bit where the CGI is so ropey. If you watch the trailer again, you'll see it. It's
But with the Cyclops, they just missed a trick. All they'd have to do is get a UK Premier League football referee, and there you are, a big plonking Cyclops.
Yeah, with a bald head.
Yeah.
What was he called? That old referee, Italian back in the day. What was he called?
Oh,
Yeah, I know the
Coletti or
one you mean.
something.
Coletti.
Yeah,
That would have been
I
good.
don't even like football, and another one you mean. Super famous.
He looked
yeah,
like the
so
guy from the Addams Family, didn't he?
So that
Yeah.
he did, yeah. That
Who's he
you know
called?
that Uncle
Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Uncle
What a
Fester.
great
Yeah.
name.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that CGI thing it's ropey if you watch it back. So it's kind of like
Well, can you give us the technicals, James? Don't be vague. Why is it ropey? Come on, techno man.
Well, they've clearly. It looks like they've strapped up the extra who's playing the soldier who gets hit essentially, and they've whipped him like really fast. But
Yeah.
there's like loads of artifacts from where they've basically just enhanced him. Obviously, where they've taken away the green screen or whatever. It just looks really nasty.
Is
You
it
should
not
have had a soundtrack? Whip it real good.
That's so
Is
weird.
it
I've
not-
seen Devo like 4 times this morning on like crappy reels. Now
Videos.
you're bringing that up. Crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that scene? Because I think he has used practical effects, but they've obviously used some kind of digital tools to
Yes,
de-res it, kind of
It's got to
thing.
be
Yeah.
green screen or something. Yeah.
I'm guessing it's like a rope or something. They use the rope to pull him up in there, and they film it, and they slow the film down.
But it looks horrible when you watch it back.
It look-
Hopefully, it looks like something that could be tidied up for the main film. Don't get me wrong, but it just in that it was so because I was literally like, oh yeah, it looks really good, and the CGI like it's minimal use you can see, and then that happened. I was like, oh, literally just said it.
Yeah. I think the problem is, just very quickly, Paul, I think the problem is like, especially we talked about this previously with the color grading. Seems like every studio is using the same like color LUTs and using the same orange and bluish kind of. I mean, I watched the trailer for June 3 directly after that one because it came up on the playlist, and I was like, God, these films are just they look the same. And it's interesting because Nolan's big thing here is he's saying like, I'm using IMAX, I'm using the best analog format that's ever been made, blah blah blah. But it looks the same, and I know the argument can be made that he's obviously to make the trailer for YouTube, they've got to kind of digitize the film that the film's filmed on. But still, obviously, the color grading it's not going to change that much in the actual theater. You still got the same look and the same flat style and really lack of depth.
There might be people viewing who are as technically ignorant as I am. So, stupid question, which I specialize in. But why, given the world of digital cameras, why is it still an old-fashioned film stock gives the best picture?
It's like Rhino, isn't it?
Yeah, we can talk about that later, actually, Paul. Unless you want to talk about it now.
Now James is here, and he's our technical expert
yeah,
who had
had
trouble hearing me when he first came into the
I had
studio.
my settings wrong.
Yeah. So apparently, this is to scale. This is to scale in terms of actual kind of the compression of the image. So this is on the right here. So on the left, the IMAX format in the film format. So you can see the actual available area on the film stock has much more space to basically, we say encode, even though it's an analog format, it has enough space within the particles of the chemistry on the film to store a lot more information, a lot more depth and detail. So before IMAX 1570, you've got the standard 70mm format, which is very similar to 35mm, except the fact it's like the full image it's not compressed. 35mm cinema is what's called anamorphic, where the image is basically distorted onto the film, but then it's projected through a lens which kind of projects it in the correct aspect ratio.
Squeeze, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But then when you look at the actual digital on the digital versions, these laser projectors on the side, I think it's digital cinema package. It's like a digital file that's like downloaded by the cinema onto their servers and then projected through it. Digitization, really, really reduces the actual quality of the film. So I think the highest resolution digital cinema projector is 4K, which is the same resolution as a modern TV. A lot of cinemas still projecting 2K, which is basically DVD quality. So you're basically projecting DVD quality image onto a big cinema screen with a
Yeah, well, I
digital
still don't.
projector.
I'm sorry to be thick, but I still don't understand why digital filming can't be as high quality, if not better, than old-fashioned film.
Well, it can be. You would just need an insane file size, and someone like Christopher Nolan would argue that you get a specific kind of organic picture quality when you film on film, because the digital is just bits, noughts, and ones, whereas the organic film chemistry has a specific look and a
No, it
specific
does.
light to
And
it.
now this is where I would offer, within my ignorance, the archetypal celluloid image for me is in Vertigo when the Tippi Hedren character is in the flower shop, and Scotty's looking at her from in a cupboard, which is I could relate to that, and he's looking at her, and it's just this. It's almost like looking at a Monet painting. It's stunning, and you could not do that with digital.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
it's almost like, to a modern eye, some of Hitchcock's films like that they actually look like moving paintings.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is as well, the thing that comes down to all of this is that film is always going to give you a more what we would call purer image, because it's got a quality of it unto itself, like printing onto vinyl. But the problem is with all of this, it's kind of like music as well. How you can have a really nice vinyl pressing of a great new album or a great new song that comes out, but essentially if it's run on digital compressors and produced in a digital environment, what's the point? It all comes down to money at the end of the day. It all comes down to can we get enough money to shoot this on film? Do we have enough time to shoot it on film? Because obviously that goes through a chemical process and whatnot. IMAX is slightly different because, like Stu eloquently put it, it's kind of a mixture, isn't it? Really, IMAX of digital and film mixed together, and they do other things and they make it all spanking and looking great. But essentially, it's just an aesthetic choice, and whether you should reproduce a modern film when it's going to end up on Netflix or when it's going to Amazon Prime or whatever, like a digital platform where it's just going to be consumable content, because that's what everything is these days. It's just content. Just pick it up, use it, put it down again. Whereas old school Hitchcock films and stuff used to be experiences, to get pretentious and whatnot. Do you want to? It's that trade-off of, do you want to make art or do you want to make money?
Well, can I point to an irony or a paradox or a contradiction, or I'm running antinomy, or I'm just trying to dream up words now. But the irony is, building on Stuart's point about the IMAX being, in digital terms, the highest possible quality, there almost seems to be this absolutely inverse relationship to the quality of the dialogue. So he's going for the most visually beautiful. And it is truly, given that it's... you see, this is my... people might wonder why I'm so bloody fixated about what he's doing to the Homer, but I remember I saw a documentary years and years ago. It was in St. Petersburg, and they were refilming Crime and Punishment, like some Western film crew. And there was an old Russian babushka up in one of the windows banging pots and pans. And she was costing them a fortune because she was ruining whole days. She had some stamina, obviously on the the vodka under the windowsill. And she was just banging these pots, and they managed to speak to her and say, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "Because Dostoevsky is ours, not yours." And I don't see this going down well. The Greeks are a very proud people. And I've seen people online, I think it's a complete red herring of Moby Dick-sized proportions to go on about American accents. The accents aren't the problem. It's the actual words spoken. Remember, the whole point about the Odyssey is it was a spoken epic that was then put down on text. So yes, it changed its medium, but it was the spoken word turned into the written word. It was always about the words. And he, in his hubris, has just taken this and thought, "Oh, that'd make a nice film." It's just beyond. It's beyond.
You know what came across from the Stephen Colbert interview? when Stephen Colbert asks Christopher Nolan, so why the Odyssey? What is it about the Odyssey? Is it something you read when you're younger? And I expected Christopher Nolan to go into this big, monologue about, oh yeah, it's my favorite work of all time, and I think it's fantastic, and my entire oeuvre has been drawn from this one moment. And he just goes, well, I did a school play once, and the school did a school play, and that was it. I was like, it's just there's no real big story that he revealed behind it. Like, I'm doing this because it's always fascinated me. It's just really is the case of that.
He said it hasn't been done before. Then he said that what I've already quoted: throw everything at the screen and see what sticks. Then he said, how do we get in there and bring something new? So it's novelty. It's not been done before. It's throw everything. And then he said it's about, because Colbert was just wittering on as what a prat.
Like he does, yeah.
Yeah, saying, are there any spoilers? And it's like 3,000, almost a 3,000 old piece of work. What are the spoilers? And then at the very beginning in the audience.
Ruined it, you bastard.
Well, I hate watch chat shows like that, because it's like commodified hysteria, the audience.
Yeah.
And I see it on the Jon
canned
Stewart
laughter.
show. Yeah, well, it's worse. Canned laughter is complete commodity, like canned soup. But it's like get all the borderline, dolts or actual morons or clinically imbecilic people in a
They
room
juice them
together.
up before. It's free booze before the show. Always that's why they get him the way they are.
Because at one point he says, and he's Christopher Nolan, woo, and then he said, and he's made the Odyssey, and they went, woo, and I'm thinking, so Homer's Odyssey is reduced to a whoop 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 in
yeehaw.
an over hystericalized audience in a TV studio. It's like there must be something in the Book of Revelations that predicted this.
It certainly
This is the
feels
end
that way.
times, yeah.
It is. Oh, seriously, this is the Beast of Babylon. Is astride.
In IMAX format.
Seriously, there must be. I'm going to, in the ancient Hebrew, there must be some, all the numbers, numerology they do. In the Kabbalah, there will be something about, there will be Hebrew letters that spell out IMAX and then apocalypse. And Armageddon. Armageddon
in
was an
Leviticus,
IMAX cinema. Yeah.
Leviticus, a man shall not sleep with a man, and Homer shall not be transferred to IMAX format. Abomination. Yeah, Christopher Nolan's Abomination. It really is.
Did you say as well when we talked on Friday? It was Friday, wasn't it? When
What day is
it's
it?
only got 6 weeks. I genuinely don't know. I'm so spun around. Bank holiday just ruined me.
I want to go home.
I want to go home. Can we go home? Didn't you say, Stu, that it's like 6 weeks until release on streaming platforms as well? Did you say that?
So I read it's going to be in the cinema for
What's
6
the
weeks and then go straight
point
to streaming.
in shooting something on IMAX if it's just going to go to Netflix straight away?
Well, if you remember, I think Tenet came out during COVID, didn't it? And there was a big argument because I think they just wanted to put it straight to streaming, and Christopher Nolan was like, well, no, we've spent all this money doing it on IMAX. We've got to have some sort of limited run. So I think they delayed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they delayed Tenet by a few months.
I'm not sure.
To actually be able to get it into the cinema just for a couple of weeks before it went to stream.
Do you think they said to Nolan, we'll give you the budget you want on these conditions?
It must be.
Yeah, it'll be in a waiver, because the thing is, it's going to make so much. But I wonder. I'm not sure what streaming service Universal is on. Is it because there's so many different streaming services now? I wonder what.
I think it's going to be it'd definitely be on Prime, wouldn't it? So you can rent it or buy it or whatever. Amazon will definitely grab hold of that. I don't think it'll be a Netflix thing. Otherwise, they
most of your streaming services, Stuart, come via a VPN and an Afghani
or Harties,
Nice.
Videodrome.
Shudder to think what's on your streaming service.
Oh man, I know, yeah.
So Cornish pirates aside.
Yeah, exactly.
Harties. The balloons for all. Odysseus.
Well, it's a nautical film, so I'm guessing it's going to go straight to those pirate services. But
something that's just struck me as well that I forgot to mention earlier was the whirlpool doesn't look that intimidating in the trailer. Don't you think?
No, they said that one off the coast of Scotland. You know what's the one in there? The Outer Hebrides. There's that famous whirlpool.
I'm not sure.
Oh, the Buckfast Eddy.
The Buckfast Eddy. I can't remember what it's called.
There'll be someone in the comments thinking that's actually what it's called now. So I'm making fun of our Celtic
gonna say.
brethren.
They make that Buckfast wine down by my way, and it's
The Gulf of
Corryvreckan.
Corryvreckan.
I
Scotland's
don't think
maelstrom,
you pronounced that right, Stuart.
Probably not.
Go on, give it a go. Go on.
I'm trying to see if there's a phonetic.
Yeah, just
Corryvreckan. The cauldron of the Pleiades. Yeah, that's where it is. That's what it looks like. It looks like they filmed it there.
they may well have done, to be honest, because it didn't look all that. It didn't look like a big. I mean, obviously, if you're a mariner, an ancient mariner as well, you'd be like, yeah, it's pretty scary that. But
have you seen
not
have either of
intimidating.
you two seen Niagara Falls? Because I was absolutely underwhelmed by Niagara Falls.
Not in
I
person.
didn't go there when I was in America.
No, it's really. Maybe I've just. I wonder whether I was so stupid in my mind. You know, subconsciously, I thought Victoria Falls
Yeah.
in Africa, and I was thinking, so Niagara Falls is, and they have these little weird, you know, tourist boats that go underneath, and I was like looking at it for ages, like hoping one of them would capsize or something, and it'd be worth watching.
Yeah.
But the actual Niagara Falls, nah.
Well, I went to New York in 2008, and we got a boat out to the Statue of Liberty, and my mate turned to me and he said, "It's much bigger in Ghostbusters 2, isn't it?" And I was like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah, it moves a bit more. So, yeah.
Right, James, say more because you can't stay for as long as the team.
Well, ultimately, I think it's going to be a successful film because I think, you know, people. It's a summer film. And it doesn't have much competition, from what I could tell. There's a few films that are coming.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
Have much in the way of competition, from what I can see, and what I can remember anyway. So I think it'll do well. I don't think it will be one of those films that's going to go down in history as one of the greatest ever. I think the problem with modern cinema, modern Hollywood, is that most audiences don't actually watch the film because it ends up going to Netflix or whatever, and we're sat behind our phones, or you've got the distraction of your kids or your home life or whatever, or you're eating dinner while you're watching it or whatever. So I don't think many people will actually
Could I just add
watch
to
it.
that? You know, because I don't really pay attention because I'm thick when it comes to numbers, but on all the YouTube analytics, I looked at just out of I think I came across it accidentally because it shows you the audience makeup, and it was like 50%, only 50% of the people who watch. I'm trying to remember. I think there's like 15% of my viewers watch it on television, and then the rest but there was only about 50 or 40% watch it on a computer. And my channel is supposed to be devoted to art, so I try and show images. Because when I first started off, I thought YouTube is a visual format. Me being literal-minded thought, well, you'll need images. You can't just drone on and show text. But loads of people watch it on their mobile phone, and I'm grateful genuinely for anyone who watches it. But why would you look at art on a mobile phone?
It's convenience, isn't it? Essentially,
But it's also completely self-defeating. So I'm droning on, and look at this beautiful painting, and someone's squinting at a 2 square inch image.
But people also watch stuff like yours, Paul, because it's long form and it's slow paced. People listen to it rather than watch it as well. You've got to remember that. So people work and stuff.
Well,
put it on.
I'd be slightly disturbed if I thought people listened to my Mardy Ringo style voice out of
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. Yeah,
Be surprised.
Well, there are masochists out there.
Yeah.
yeah. It's like the Valerian TV it's the Valerian tea of YouTube.
No, because the only thing that keeps me going, Stuart, I think it's why I wanted you on the channel. I think your nasally voice is slightly worse than mine.
They kind of cancel each other out, don't they?
It's kind of like the back of the throat to the front of the nose.
Yeah.
Whereas James just
It's true.
makes me think of, roses, satin sheets, chocolates.
Hey,
Yeah,
baby.
baby.
Yeah, baby.
Trying to think of a midday friendly, sexually orientated comment. I can't think of one, so let's move on.
Well,
It's too
people
early
in
in the day.
Texas, for some reason, said everything's bigger in Texas. Yeah, including the mental asylums.
Yeah.
And the population of tigers that people keep in their back gardens and stuff.
That was a great documentary,
It
that
was
tiger
good.
bloke.
It was good.
Yeah, what is that about?
Good fun.
I like those. What
Crazy.
were those guys in Las Vegas called and the Siberian tigers?
Oh, Siegfried and Roy. Yeah, Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah.
That was-
nice.
That was called Nemesis, wasn't it? Or, fate
Something like that.
intervened. Guess what? Poke a tiger with a stick
Yeah.
constantly.
Keep doing that all day. Yeah,
It'll
keep doing that all
eventually
day.
bite your head off.
Yeah.
Apparently that was Oklahoma. I thought it was based in Texas, though, Tiger Man. Was it Tiger Man? Tiger King. Wasn't it?
Oh,
Tiger King?
hey, Jay is very keen to disassociate himself from Tiger Man.
Ah, it's Oklahoma.
Give money talking about Troy. So that's the thing with this film as well that I thought with the Troy sequence. What I'm guessing is the Troy sequence. It certainly looks like a big battle, with the tower collapsing, very visual, representation of Troy falling and whatnot. That looked pretty cool. I thought that actually looked like it could be quite entertaining. But we've seen that Troy film. If it's anything like Troy, have you ever seen Troy?
I've not seen it. No, I know the one you mean, but I've not seen it.
I think they tried to be more sort of mythological. They tried to be more like, it's about Achilles and everything. Brad Pitt plays Achilles.
Well, Brad Pitt would have liked those times because the average marriage age was about 16.
Well, yeah. But
true.
so
Allegedly.
it's probably going to get compared to that a lot, obviously, just because it's a Greek tale based seemingly at the same sort of period. Obviously, the fall of Troy. We don't know what's in the Odyssey just yet, but
just to jump in though, James, very quickly, I think that's the whole danger of it, is that studio executives are going to look up what Sword and Sandals has done before, and they're going to think, okay, we trust you, Christopher Nolan, you can put some subjective, some time bullshit in there, but we expect battles, we expect explosions, we expect loincloths, we expect big boob nymphs. You know what I mean? It's like it's a genre that's already been there. He's got something like Memento. It was his
Here's
own
a
thing.
thought. I genuinely don't want to lower the tone too much, but why on earth, if your casting director wasn't Kim Kardashian done as Calypso?
She's kind of old news now, though.
Yeah, she's a bit.
All right, I'm using her as an example because I didn't want to say Sydney Sweeney.
Sounded more like a
imagine
wish
what
list
Sydney
than an
Sweeney
example.
I can't actually say Sydney Sweeney without going. But Sydney Sweeney would have been perfect.
Yeah.
And Give Money said Troy was awful. It wasn't awful. It was a romp.
Will you stop?
It was a
Would you stop deflecting me from Sydney Sweeney, please, James?
Sorry.
Why?
Romping Sydney Sweeney.
This is a genuine question. It would have given me euphoria if Sydney Sweeney had been Calypso. Why not?
Well, you've got AI tools now, Paul. So when it comes out on digital, just download the film, bung it through ChatGPT, and replace Charlize Theron with Sydney Sweeney, and then there you go. All your wishes are fulfilled.
I've already got images of you putting my head on Charlie Theron's, and that's going to end up on the internet. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's going to get compared, like you say, that Swords and Sandals thing. I don't know. Do you think it's going to be a good film now that you've seen the trailer?
No, honestly, it's the mismatch between the dialogue. If it was basically done in sign language, it would be probably an excellent film. But the fact people are speaking, or in Charlie Theron's case, mumbling, it's unbelievably, atrociously awful. And I don't know about you two. I haven't spent a lot of time looking for how it's been received online, but the sense seems to be, and it's one of these self-fulfilling prophecies. People have convinced themselves it's going to be brilliant, so it is brilliant. And no one seems to have commented. They've commented on the accents. They've commented on the daddy will come home. But all of the dialogue that's been shown is of equally atrocious lack of quality.
Yeah.
And it beggars belief that you spend that amount of money on making a film. But from what Stuart says, Nolan's happy with that because he doesn't seem to think dialogue's important.
It's intentional. Yeah, he's like the anti what's his name? Tarantino. Like he's for him it's all about the visuals. But the problem is, as you rightly say, Paul, is if the narrative is just so bad, then you start to pick up on it. It starts to become legitimate critique. But in this case, the situation's worse because you're basically comparing a narrative to one of the greatest works of Western literature of all time. So of course people are going to pick up, if the dialogue doesn't stack up, it doesn't matter if Nolan drowns it out in the background with, 7.1 sounds, explosions and subwoofers and, crazy synth music. If the dialogue is ropey and boring and there's no effort involved, as it seems to suggest in the trailer, then people are going to really pick up and say, hey, what have you done here with the Odyssey?
Could I widen out up the discussion? Because what I always, and it's a bit lazy, but when we talk about the links between social media and online media and health, I always just go to my go-to guy as Jonathan Haidt, the Anxious Generation and stuff. But I think he argued it was between about 2010 and 2015. I think he called it the Age of Rage, where young people just started developing mental illness, beyond previous records. There's a real epidemic.
Yeah,
And part of it
unsurvivable.
strikes me. One of the beauties, and this is why I'm doing it on my channel, every single bloody book. And I'm glad, retrospectively, I took a bit of a chance when I decided to do it, because it could have been a brilliant film. And it makes, not what I would have been doing redundant, but it doesn't have the same impact. But I'm hoping just to show how beautiful the language is. But within the epic, the original Homer's epic, everything's about relatedness. Everything's about the gods and nature and human beings all interacting. There's the clan system. There's Xenia, I think it's called, is the tradition and custom of hospitality, which is a really important theme that runs throughout. So the suitors who are after Penelope are just eating all the time. And there's actually a book that's called about the role of meat in the structure of the Odyssey, because he points out this is an agrarian society and meat was incredibly rare. You only ate it on sacrifices and holidays.
Yeah.
And these men are just eating them out of house and home. So, but all this relatedness, and I made a point on the very first page of James Joyce's Ulysses, there's a reference to, in Greek, chromosmothos or something. It's golden-mouthed. And the very beginning of the Odyssey is there's a Pallas Athena. Athena comes down in human form to speak to Telemachus. But Pallas Athena was one of these. Again, it's I'll find it. Here we go. Chryselephantine statues. It's statues that are made of ivory and they have gold on them as well. And in James Joyce's Ulysses, there's this reference to the golden-mouthed Buck Mulligan, because he's got a gold filling and he's got teeth are like ivory. So the point about literature, this is a very long-winded way of saying the beauty of literature is it always refers back to other great literary works.
Yeah.
So if you're reading the very first page of James Joyce's Ulysses, you get a resonance with the Odyssey, which was 2,700 or whatever years earlier. And there's just this constant, I don't want it to sound like I'm going to start singing from The Lion King, but there's this big cycle of life. That's literature.
Yeah.
And what's happening in this film is, I was going to ask you to, but it's this, there's another, I'm sorry to go on a rant, but there's a guy called Jacques Ellul, Ellul, and he wrote The Technological Society, but he also wrote a lesser-known book called The Humiliation of the Word. And he was basically saying in an image-based society, the word is humiliated, the word is downgraded. And if nothing else, I don't think it's an overreaction. This is such a summer blockbuster. This is one of the best directors in the world, if not the best. It's the most expensive. It's the most technologically advanced. All these things have come together. But it marks the absolute lack of respect for the written word. That's in IMAX Technicolor. And to link it back to what I was trying to make the point, it might sound a weird tangent, but when Jonathan Haidt's writing about young people having a mental illness epidemic, they've lost a sense of relatedness. They've lost a sense of rootedness. When they go online, everything is random, everything is fragmented. And Jonathan Haidt has just done a brilliant social science job of tracking the data. So it's difficult for people like me who are just obsessed about, the written word to make quantitative claims about the effects of an illiterate society. But I think Jonathan Haidt gets about as close as you can to doing that. And this strikes me as the absolute epitome. How many young people watching that film are going to have any clue? A tiny percentage may go off and read the Odyssey, but I doubt it. And it just strikes me as marking this death of the written word. And everyone's going to pay to go and see the death of the written word.
Yeah.
Has that cheered everyone up?
Yeah, sounds great. Just going to go have some lunch in a minute and just contemplate. Seriously. No, I think it's a fair criticism of Nolan himself, though, to be honest, because he is a very intellectual filmmaker that makes things convoluted and disjointed purposefully. So maybe he's going to find a really clever way of telling this that it does strike some of those points that you allude to, Paul. But I just don't see it. I think especially with women, he's not great at writing dialogue for women. That's kind of been proven throughout his last few films. But I just don't. I agree with you. I just don't think it's.
Imagine the
gonna
dialogue
be-
with me on the island with Calypso stroke Sydney Sweeney. Hello, Sydney.
Hello, Sydney. Leave me alone.
Oh man.
No. You think I'm trapped with you? You're trapped with
Do you
me.
want to go swimming?
Oh, dude.
I just think it's going to be a overly. I think we're going to get a timeline where we're just constantly jumping back and forward. And are we in the present day? Are we in the past? Are we in the future? You know.
What about that bit where Charlie Theron says in the trailer? You know, what do you remember? It's but that's Memento, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if
It
you
is,
got-
yeah.
Not a lot,
It
really.
is.
Not a lot.
You've got,
I've got some
Agamemnon. You've got Agamemnon in his Batman outfit. He really has got all the guys back together again. All his
He
old
has it.
films.
Yeah.
He loves doing
Apparently,
that as
there's
well.
there's some cameos in it as well. There's some kind of
What,
rumors
people
about
in
who could
red
be the
cod pieces? Word up. Word up.
Yeah, I think Christian Bale's rumored to be in it. I think.
Can you sing that, Stuart, cameo?
Which ones? Which?
Remember you
what-
did Word Up?
Where
He had a red
Cameo.
cod piece.
Who did?
Cameo. It was this. It was like before rap. It was like it was pop verging on becoming rap. But he
Oh, I don't
wore this
remember
like
that.
it was like boxers have like a kidney
Cameo Word
protector.
Up.
Yeah,
Where that?
and it was
I'm trying to
basically
think,
like a
yeah.
ghetto cod piece.
1986. Oh, well, that's
It's like
that's
Rick
not
James
before
era,
rap.
isn't it?
I keep
Yeah,
forgetting he's a little stripling, isn't it, our Stuart? You can't give him references that are too old.
Oh well,
Oh well.
I see the photos now. Yeah, I see it now.
I reckon
wow.
Jay
Very
in
Rick
Texas.
James-esque,
Jay in
yeah.
Texas, he's probably got all of Cameo's
Brilliant, that's it.
albums.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, Jay's Incontinence, they actually look like Cameo looks like in rubber incontinence pads.
It's red pants. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay's got some of them. Jay, send us the photos, please.
I'm getting mental images of Rick James. He doesn't look like Rick James, does he? Does he look
It was of that ilk, but no,
It is, yeah,
Cameo
it's
was a sui generis, as they would say.
Nah. Yeah. Anyway, swiftly moving on. Paul, it's interesting that you said about
Word up.
literature, about word up. It's interesting what you
Word
said about
up.
literature and the kind of intertextuality and something like Ulysses refers back to the Odyssey, etc. I think that happens within cinema. But obviously, as we talked about before, cinema is much more reduced. That the kind of cinematic language and visual language can't convey as much narrative depth, arguably, as literature. So I think what's going to happen with Nolan's Odyssey is, by default, he has to refer back to previous sword and sandal films. He has to refer back to kind of the narrative structure of an action movie, while doing his own little thing that people expect. But I think by doing that, by referring back, we're not getting those big, interesting links that you would do in literature. It's not that moment you think, you read James Joyce and you think, I've made the connection with the Odyssey. That's fantastic. It's really clever. You don't get that with cinema. It's going to be like, oh, that shot is very similar to Troy, or that costume looks similar to that, and it's not quite the same kind of depth of experience. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say about Jonathan Haidt's work on mental illness amongst young people. That making the connections is almost you're making... My point about relatedness is, it might seem strange to modern eyes and ears, but the whole notion of Xenia, when you arrive at somebody's house, they have to look after you in a certain way. And it's quite a nuanced custom. So, for example, they're not supposed to ask you who you are or why you've come until they've given you food. Because there is a chance, if they find out who you are and why you've come, they may not show you proper hospitality. So there are all these traditions that are quite subtly clever. But the families are all interrelated, and the stories are all interrelated. So the gods keep coming down, the gods keep doing things. Athena, for example, at the very beginning, Athena comes to speak to Telemachus. There's three aspects to what she does. She's the goddess of reason and wisdom, so the Latin Minerva. But she's also Pallas Athena has got a notion of Pallas is like a young maiden, but it also is associated with the Greek verb to brandish a weapon. So she was also the goddess of war. So there's at least, I'm trying to remember, there was a third thing she does. Oh, she's also the daemon, or not the Matt Damon, but the daemon of the household, the protectress. So a Greek person listening to it has already picked up on three connotations of Athena.
Yeah.
And that making those connections grounds you in a culture. But your point about, there are slight connections in film, but it's not the same. And if this is the highest culture that young people are now being exposed to, they've lost the connections. And correlation's not causation, but it really does strike me as feeding into this doom loop of constant screening.
But I think that's the big question. I mean, this goes on to Adorno and Horkheimer. This process of reduction, bit by bit, a reduction that blocks off the original source of inspiration. At what point, and can it? This is the big question, I guess, for our age. At what point does the feeling that something is missing and something is wrong kind of stimulate a response in enough people? So arguably someone like Adorno is very pessimistic, and he would say like, well no, this kind of reduction of narrative complexity is just a feature of modernity or the Enlightenment or whatever. This is the way it is, and this is manifested in today's digital society where everything is reduced to 0 and 1. And the thing is, though, the fact that there is this sudden upsurge in mental illness is, to me, I would argue, is a kind of objective proof that this is a bad thing. And that feeling of like, I'm getting mental health issues from social media, I'm getting mental health issues from the way this society is now, that would hopefully spur somebody into action to say like,
but Stuart,
the world is not the way it is.
Yeah, but what action is
that's the question.
But my very dismal perception would be there isn't any positive action. It's not like, it's slightly similar to being physically fit. Yeah. If you become obese and have to go around on a mobility scooter, which is basically my aim, if I keep eating enough, I'll be there. But you can cut down on your diet, you can take a rigorous exercise regime, you can do various practical things that should or could feasibly get you on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
The problem is, to do that, the mental equivalent of that requires, you see, the people I'm older than you two, but I think we can still remember a time before the worst of on-screen culture. Mm-hmm. So we've got a frame of reference. We can think back to what it was like on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Take it away from screen culture. I remember Sundays in the UK. It was deathly quiet because no shops were open, no pubs were open for limited hours. Mm-hmm. And the world had a different pace. There wasn't this constant overstimulation and hyperactivity. In that world. And also you had, all right, we've been educated in online stuff, but we also had a more old-fashioned education where we learned to read, we got all the references. You can't go back in time. If you've got a teenager now who really wanted to immerse themselves in literature and stuff, I'm not saying it's impossible, but they're really starting with a disadvantage.
Well, the problem, I think that's what Hollywood and Netflix and all of them have come to the conclusion of, that they cannot entertain you anymore. They cannot give you that kind of immersion that you're alluding to, Paul, and that's why their whole output is just remake, reboot.
There's a good line from Gladiator, though, isn't it? Are you not entertained?
Exactly. Well, we're not anymore, are we? They just can't do it. No. They just can't do it. So it's you are getting kids. I mean, I just talked to a mate of mine. His son's just started film school. Good luck to him. But he's asked me like, oh, what kind of film should he be watching? And I'm like, well, I can give you about 500 from the 60s and the 50s and the 40s that he should watch. And he's like, yeah, but what about modern stuff? Because they have to investigate modern stuff. And I haven't got a clue. There's literally nothing I could recommend that could teach you the craft of filmmaking or even just entertain you. I saw earlier that I think it's 10 years since the Rey films, the Star Wars films came about. And I think that Hollywood it got to the 2016 mark and it just gave up. It just went, well, that's it now. We've tried to bring back Star Wars and it failed. And if they can ruin Star Wars,
James, just to add to that though, in the Colbert interview, Nolan actually says, this is a direct quote, Homer in a way is the George Lucas of his time.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the Marvel
Really?
of his time, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah, it's okay. Well, if he was,
I
then
think-
it was Marvel of the sort of 2005 time.
I think we got
It definitely
that
wasn't
quote.
2026.
There it is. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
this from the Colbert interview. Yeah.
And the modern comic book is our expression of that. But the modern comic book, the comic book industry itself is dead. So it's like that's not even a very good comparison. Just, you're
Stuart
saying
likes his
Homer.
comics, don't you, Stu?
Some are pretty good. Not not into superhero comics. I like certain manga.
The graphic novel.
For any
Yeah,
North
the
Americans out there,
novels.
you really need to check out and try and get a physical copy of the comic called Viz.
No,
No, seriously,
yeah.
if you want insights
It's
into
class.
British culture, working class culture, Viz.
Can I tell you a funny
love
story
Viz.
about the Viz?
Can I stop you?
You can do it, but it really is genuinely funny. So I used to be. I am obsessed with Viz. I used to have all the annuals going back to. I started buying it when I was very young, probably a bit too young to get most of the jokes in it.
Yeah, same.
But I actually drew a comic and sent it into Viz when I was about 12 years old to see if they would publish it. So it was Postman Pat was a drug dealer. And it was a story of him getting high on his stash and then getting chased by the police. And he went to Ted Glenn because Ted Glenn ripped him off, and he went to get money off Ted Glenn off his tick list. And I drew it in the style of Postman Pat, and then I sent it off to Viz, and then
Jay's
no,
asking, is
nothing
Viz
happens.
like Andy Capp? Not really.
10 times worse.
Yeah, so for example, forgive me, I don't shoot the messenger, but one of the what do you call them? The storylines in Viz.
Characters.
Yeah, there's the sketches.
Yeah, one of one of the
comic
regular
fans.
storylines was they were called fat slags,
Yeah, the fat
Two fat
slags.
slugs, yeah.
and they were
fat
two
slags, yeah.
rather large ladies from a northern town. I think it
From
was
the
Newcastle,
northeast.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they would do things like, I'm trying to put this as politely as possible, but they would they would fornicate or be fornicated with.
Yeah,
Whilst-
Baz was the boyfriend.
Yeah, so they'd be in an
Yeah.
alley behind a nightclub fornicating whilst still arguing over who'd got the last bit of pizza
Yeah,
in flagrante delicto. So to
yeah,
speak.
and everything was shown.
Don't
in
make
it.
that
That
Don't
was
do
the
that
whole
on
thing.
screen. Don't do that.
No,
Talking
it
about
was
the fat
the draw.
slags. You were doing that. Disgusting.
Oh man, do you remember Fruity Bun, the baker? The bacon. It was
Oh,
basically
God.
one comic strip was about a baker who would bake gingerbread full-size sex dolls, and then he'd always get in trouble. And then we'd put like a donut for an entry.
Roger, was
and,
it Roger Melly?
Roger Melly, the man on
telly?
the telly. Yeah.
Jay,
Sid
you've
the
got to
Sexist.
try and get hold of a copy. I think it'd be right up your street.
Oh, you.
It's all
amazing.
online. Yeah, they put a lot of on free. And I remember one sketch was it was just called Doctor Pooh, and it was Doctor Who, but just called Doctor Pooh, and he was like traveling through time to find the best place to do a shit. That was what it said at the start.
But actually, to bring this back to Homer, that actually describes the plot of going from the Odyssey to Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey. I think you've just described the narrative arc of almost 3,000 years of Western culture.
What,
Finding a place to
Odysseus-
go for a shit.
Odysseus
No, the
wants to
film
get-
is
get home and go to the toilet.
the film is the excrement.
Oh no, it's true. Yeah. No.
Someone in the chat has just said he's basically saying that comics are like myths, but he's missing completely the point on what is derivative. I can't speak today. Apologies. He's looking at the appearance and missing the substance. Yeah.
Nolan. Yeah. No, I'd agree with that to some extent. Yeah. Mm.
Well, the myth, this is what I hope to get to in my series, because one of the site I'm absolutely fascinated by, the gods. If you think about the Greek gods, it's unbelievably complex because they're basically projections of human characteristics. They're not gods
Yeah.
at all.
Onto natural phenomenon.
And there's various, I was just reading this morning, there are various aspects of spirits. So, the Greeks had a much more complicated language than we do today, which is one of my other themes. So thumos would be a type of the spirit, intestinal fortitude, guts, or, you get up and go. But then there'd be other types. So I think metis is mischief. And there's one called Arte, I think it is, ATE, and that's all about being overcome by irrationality or doing something reckless. And what was also, you can add so many layers of complexity because the Greeks would excuse themselves. They'd say, I was overcome by a spirit, like Ate. But they weren't excused because the Greeks judged actions, not intentions. But someone who had suffered at your hands would recognize that it wasn't really you. You'd been overcome by something while still wanting you to be punished.
Yep.
So, but that strikes me as, if you look at the US, psychological statistical manual, diagnostic and statistical manual, and all these really unrealistic descriptions of what mental illness is, and you have to have 6 out of 7 or 6 out of 9 characteristics, and then guess what? You've won the lucky prize. You qualify as schizophrenic. It's the Greeks actually had a much more. Stuart used the word before, organic. They had a much more relatable and related. All these things were interconnected, and people could have momentary lapses of judgment or be overcome by emotion or desire. We're back to Calypso and Sydney Sweeney, but these things are projections of our psychology. And again, these are, because Tunji there's talking about missing the substance. You could consume the myths, and almost by osmosis, you're getting some of this relatedness and some of this psychological complexity. And we're back to the Jonathan Haidt stuff. Young people aren't getting that.
Yeah.
Viz is somewhere in the middle. Viz is a profound philosophical work.
It genuinely is. If you're from the northeast of England, it is a profound philosophical and sociological character analysis of an entire region. It's because it's all true.
Chaps, it's been absolutely fun, but I'm going to have to love you and leave you, I'm afraid, on that note.
Oh,
Can we
appreciate
badmouth
it,
you? Can we
James.
badmouth you the minute you leave?
All right, yeah, go for it. I'll be watching.
Yeah, the wonders of technology.
Right, yeah, really good to speak to you both. And see
Right,
you
so
later,
do you want
chap.
to plug your video before you go on your...
Yeah, so if you're on YouTube, if you just search for my name down there, Coxie's Making Videos.
Sorry,
I don't know what you did there.
My
You covered
fat
me up
thumbs.
as I was trying to say that.
How do we get rid of that? My fat
don't know.
thumbs.
Well, that was the link to the website.
Sorry, P Pants gets everywhere. I'm trying to get rid of him.
Yeah. And yeah, Jay, it's a comic. It's a comic for adults. But go back to the visit. It's like a monthly. It used to be weekly, but it's like a monthly, adult comic.
Anyway, yeah, if you want to search for me, Coxie's Making Videos, all in one word, on YouTube. I've just done a little review of this, the Odyssey trailer that came out yesterday, and the video's up there if you want to check it out. If not, I do other stuff, media review, media commentary, talking about stuff that Hollywood does wrong, pretty much. He's made another comment. There we go.
I got rid of it. See, who said I couldn't do it after about 5 minutes of trying?
But yeah, so I'm gonna have to love you and leave you, like I say. But yeah, please do
Thanks for
check the channel
coming
out.
on,
That's no-
James.
That's no
Yeah,
problem,
thanks,
and I'll speak to you both soon.
Don't leave me
Yep.
with him. Please.
I'm sorry.
No.
See you later.
Leave me.
I'm scared. I'm scared, James.
It's only me and you now, big boy. Is that what Tiffany? I think we're alone now.
Did I tell you I almost got into I haven't got into many fights in my life, which is strange considering how annoying I am.
No.
But one of the closest I've come to having a fist fight was in America when Penn State, and it was a really heated argument with another bloke. I said Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now is one of the most profound existential creed occurs in pop music history.
I agree. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
he said no, Kylie Minogue is much better.
Mm.
And we started like bumping chests. It was like baseball when they argue with each other with the umpire.
Calm down.
But given the
Yeah.
size of my torso, I think I had a bit of an unfair advantage.
Did he back down?
Right. So what else did you want to say about Homer? Did you have any other slides you wanted to look at?
I think we covered it just with the IMAX stuff. I think that was the important bit. But I had this thought because just for background, Paul sent me some ideas about Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer, because in the dialectic of enlightenment, I think they're probably their most famous work. They use the Odysseus myth in the first 2 chapters, especially chapter 2, to basically put forward this thesis that the process of enlightenment and rationalization, which leads to the modern world, modernity, actually goes back to the historical beginning of Western society. So Adorno and Horkheimer as theorists, I think, have been wrongly misread as being anti-enlightenment. But really, what they're talking about in this very famous critical theory text is that the process of enlightenment rationalization is a reductive force, and it just got me thinking a little bit about this idea of the IMAX spectacle and what Nolan's doing with his work. Is if you think in terms of the original, as you just said, Paul, the Greek society, ancient Greek society, it had so many different ways of explaining things in the world that we don't have nowadays, because they were much more in tune to, I guess, like phenomenological things. You know, they experience the world with wonder, and then they create this whole mythos about, you know, why the world is. They had time to actually think about, why do things exist? Why is there a world? Why do I exist? You know, this is where Western philosophy is so heavily indebted to the Greeks. And Adorno and Horkheimer basically argue that by the time Homer comes along and writes the Odyssey is the first example, they argue, of this process of rationalization. And Odysseus is kind of like the rational hero. Does that make any sense? You might be able to explain it a bit better. I think it goes to the theory, what we talked about, the idea that Odysseus is a cunning hero.
Yeah, I mentioned it. I'm going to do all this in a lot of depth, but Laura sounded like Cilla Black then. But the concept of his cunningness, I do think that's a very good point. And also, maybe you'd want to comment on this aspect. For people who are vaguely familiar with the Odyssey, at one famous point, I think nowadays they say Scylla and Charybdis, but I think technically it's Scylla and Charybdis. Yeah. But anyway, Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla is the monster that rips off people's heads, and a six-headed monster, and he eats 6 of Odysseus's men. And then you've got the Charybdis is the whirlpool, and they have to go between them. So what the cunningness of Odysseus, he's already shown his cunningness with the Trojan horse, and apparently I think there must have been some other trailer footage whereby in the Trojan horse, somebody gets stabbed, and Odysseus, I think Menelaus, they put their hand over the mouth of the person who's being stabbed. But I've seen comments online where they say when the sword's about to be withdrawn, Odysseus is cunning enough to wipe the blood off with his hand. And that's a little touch that Nolan's added. Yeah. So there's that type of stuff. But in the actual Charybdis and Scylla, the idea is that he ties himself to the mast. And you get little snippets of that in the trailer. Christopher Nolan shows they're on the boat and they're trying to go through. And the idea is the sirens are singing. But the sirens represent knowledge. They represent knowledge of the past. That not everyone, and if the idea is that if you experience the knowledge of the past that the sirens sing, you basically go comatose. You can't bear it. Yeah. But Odysseus is simultaneously worried but also curious. So he gets the men to tie him to the mast, and with orders, if he demands to be released, they have to pull on the ropes even tighter. Meanwhile, his men are rowing, and they fill their ears with wax so they can't hear the sirens, so they can't be tempted. But the cleverness is the way in which Adorno and Horkheimer interpret it. They get a really bad reputation because they're deemed to be postmodernist, but they're not. Neo-Marxist, they're responsible for all the wokeness. I just think that's rubbish. But anyway,
rubbish,
yeah. They describe that as a metaphor for the way in which capitalists or owners allow themselves to hear the call of the sirens.
But the workers, they're blocked from.
But the workers are blocked from accessing it because they have their ears filled. But also, the owners, the rich people, whatever you want to call them, they hear the sound of the beautiful art or the music. But they tie themselves to the mast. They don't allow themselves to experience it fully. So in the society Adorno and Horkheimer are talking about, the workers don't get access to the joys of great art. But also, in a certain way, neither do the people who could afford it. Because in order to become rich, they've had to restrain all their instincts.
Yeah.
So it's a very complex, and it's very applicable to today's world. And he goes on in that essay that Stuart's mentioned to talk about things like the totally administered society. And we don't have time to go into it today, but maybe on another occasion.
Well,
but
we would say many videos. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a dense text.
But you'll remember there's a paragraph where he talks about the totally administered society and the way in which all our emotions are preordained by this big technical apparatus. And he's basically describing in the 1940s the algorithm before it ever, was a sparkle in an evil AI demon's eye. He's
absolutely.
describing, 80 years ahead of his time, what the algorithm has come to be.
But I think what's actually quite interesting for me about looking at Nolan's Odyssey, kind of in relation to Dawn and Horkheimer, is this idea that we've kind of gone full circle. So if the Odyssey was the original point in Western history, according to Adorno and Horkheimer, where you started to get this very kind of concrete representation of rationalization and Enlightenment thinking, kind of Nolan is taking the Odyssey and actually reducing that even further to the technological imperative by kind of encodifying it into this big technical, IMAX spectacle. So he's reducing a text. If you think of the Odyssey as Homer's way of reducing the original depth of Greek mythology, it's reduced, but it still retains a reference to some extent to the original mythology. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is really only kind of lip service to what's come before. It's kind of re-encodified it into its own, culture industry piece. And I think we see that with the dialogue. I mean, the dialogue in the trailer is the perfect example. We are so far removed from the depth and breadth of the original text that it's kind of, what is being presented, I think, as something, wondrous, something fantastic is just a spectacle, an IMAX spectacle.
Yeah, and one for viewers, one of the ways to understand the dialectic of enlightenment, they describe myth. Myth takes the inanimate and makes it animate. So when you and I, Stuart, did Proust, just before the famous Madeline scene, he talks about the Celtic notion of transmigration of souls within objects. So you walk past a certain tree and the spirit of the tree could suddenly inhabit you.
Yeah.
It's old Celtic tradition. So that's the whole notion of myth is you take inanimate nature, rocks and stuff, and you make them animate. You give them mythical properties. Or you get the winds, things that aren't totally inanimate, but the wind or the sea suddenly becomes Poseidon. And Poseidon in the Odyssey is a major figure. I've said before on my channel, I like to think of myself as Poseidon because just constantly raging, often without any reason. Tempestuous, blah, blah, blah. But that's what myth does. But what the Enlightenment does with science and with too much rationality and with bureaucracy and trying to technologically control everything like Nolan's done with this film, they take the animate. It's your point, Stuart, just put in a different way. The Enlightenment takes the animate and turns it into this abstract commodity. They make it lifeless.
Yeah.
So the mythologically rich Odyssey is taken, and all of it's the point, what's his name, Tunji was making, it's the substance. It's like decaffeinated coffee. It's like alcohol-free beer. These are abominations. These things should not exist. But that's what today's world does.
What's interesting about Adorno and Horkheimer, I'd recommend anyone to get stuck into anything that they've written, is the fact that they suggest that this is a natural process. This seems to be an inanimate process inherent to human beings, that this is a logical progression. I think what they worry about the most is, and it's very similar to Heidegger, I think it's such a parallel between Heidegger and the Frankfurt School, is that the real danger is that we don't see this process happening. So if we see the process happening, we see the reduction through enlightenment as a process. I think in the first chapter they draw on Hegel and Kant and say that enlightenment as an ideology, I think the word they use, as an ideal, in itself isn't bad. The problem is that when that ideal becomes a process that then becomes invisible to its own process, we lose the critical faculty to question that process. And what tends to happen with rationality is, we see with the sciences, it kind of produces an explanation or a version of reality that then kind of encloses itself, it cocoons itself, and that becomes the only version. It kind of, from a dialectical perspective, it blocks off any emergence of alternative viewpoints. So that's the ultimate danger. Is they're not arguing that rationality and reason is a bad thing, but rationality and reason without self-reflexivity and without critique and the ability to see itself for what it is, this is a version of reality, this isn't reality.
Yeah,
that in itself is the danger.
Just to back up what you're saying, a slightly different angle on that is that your point about, well, what do young people do if they sense there's something missing? What do they do to compensate for that?
Yep.
The problem is, when a young person's watching something like the Odyssey as the film, all the things I've mentioned, like, they're not going to know that it's got resonances with the first page of James Joyce's Ulysses.
Exactly, yeah.
Which, in and of itself, isn't that big a deal, except it shows you, when you know that, and when you know a bit about the Odyssey, you know its subtlety, you know the linguistic complexity of these so-called primitive Greeks, that it's more complex than our language. When you know all this, you then understand why Christopher Nolan's film, what it lacks, how it's manipulated the original, how it could have been different, or how maybe it should never have been made. But if you don't know the links, if you don't know the background, you can't. It's your point about not being able to self-reflect. Heidegger would call it, you've withdrawn from withdrawal.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're missing if you've never seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the danger with this big IMAX spectacle as well. It's presented as a big event, and people are going to go to it and, you know, bang on endlessly. Oh, it was incredible. You know, the scene when that happened, the special effects, blah, blah, blah. But if that is the experience of wonder that people's lives are reduced to nowadays, you know, the banality of going to a shopping center, the banality of walking through the shopping center to the IMAX theater, then you sit down in your seat for 3 hours and you have an experience of what you think is wonder. That is the danger, is that you're actually realizing that there's an avenue or a possibility of a much richer life with a much more closer and accurate experience of what the Greeks would call wonder. That is the ultimate danger.
Yeah, the more you think, it's a good example of wonder idea, because despite myself, when I read this stuff, I'm driven by the linkages I've been referring to. I find that truly wondrous. Might sound pretentious, but it's like, that makes me read more and more and more and more. And it is a bit like, it's like Lotus Eaters, it's a bit like a drug. And that's what people aren't getting. And when you haven't, it's a good drug, because it's self-affirming, or it develops your brain, it makes you self-reflexive, it has all these positive byproducts. And what you're describing is this desert-like cultural landscape where people are only given pre-digested food.
Yep.
And again, we're back to the Jonathan Hay. You then wonder why mental illness is on the rise, because people are dislocated, people are fragmented, people have no sense of grounding, in Heidegger's terms.
Yeah. What's interesting, you know, the cultural theorist, the digital theorist, sorry, is a guy called Cal Newport.
I don't know.
He does a podcast, and a lot of his podcast at the moment is focusing on not even just like a digital detox, but the kind of the mental health aspect of consuming digital slop. And a lot of the practical kind of panaceas he's giving is things like go and read a complex book, put your phone in another room, or get rid of your mobile phone altogether. You know, if you need to go online with a purpose. You know, don't just go online to consume. You go online to actually, you know, watch a documentary or research something. But the big thing is like, the main thing you need to do is read more. And then once you start reading more, then naturally you start to write more, because actually writing, and this links to the big kind of discourse at the moment with AI and large language models and people generating text on AI. It's like, once you externalize thought to the extent that large language models can do, you know, that you type what you want and it will write it for you, then you're actually losing that capacity in your brain. And losing that capacity is now science is showing, your medical studies are showing that can lead to mental health problems.
Well, also, have you heard of the British Social Studies Survey?
No,
I hope I'm not misrepresenting it, so people please check it out on your own. It's a while since I've looked at it. But I think I'm right in saying it's the world's single biggest social science sample study, where they took young people of a certain age in the UK. I think it was the 1950s or something, and
Yeah.
they've tracked them over their lifetime with regular interviews over time. So I don't know what the actual sample size was, but you're talking in the tens of thousands. And what they found was one of the most significant correlations between long life they found was education and reading.
Yep.
They actually found the more people read, it had a correlation with the length of their lives. So, on the one hand, the type of thing we're talking about is all arty-farty, airy-fairy nonsense. But on the other hand, it's very difficult to prove. But all the pointers, when they do these huge, big studies, seem to imply if you're getting a mental workout, if you're learning stuff, all of these things contribute to longevity.
Oh, there's scientific evidence that's the thing. It's not arty-farty at all.
Yeah, but what I mean is if I'm talking about the gold-toothed Buck Mulligan at the first page of James Joyce, people are thinking, what has that got to do with anything? But I'm actually just trying to give a very practical example of the type of link that you can make if you keep reading and if you keep following things up. And that's the type of... It may not seem particularly self-reflexive, but I think you get some little endorphin hit. And also your brain,
really
the synapses, your synapses expand because you've made these linkages.
It's like it's a bit of a like low culture example, but it's a bit like Dan Brown, where I think for me when I read philosophy, when I read a lot of different philosophy books, I usually read in parallel different things because I go off on a tangent. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I haven't heard of that theorist. I'll read that. But then, as you say, when you start seeing different theorists and different philosophers that have made different connections, and then you make connections yourself, it is like that Dan Brown moment when all of a sudden this kind of like this puzzle, interconnected puzzle kind of comes together, and you feel, I've just discovered some hidden, profound philosophical knowledge.
Yep.
But I could watch a video on YouTube about it passively while scrolling through my phone and doing whatever, but you wouldn't get the same effect as if you were actually reading the books yourself and you made that connection. And it is scientifically proven that it's making synaptic connections in your brain, and it gives you an endorphin hit.
Yeah, I might do a whole video because I just found it's not particularly significant in and of itself, but I did a video that mentioned this book, Being No One, about this mind theorist, Thomas Metzinger. This philosopher of mind who basically argues we don't actually have a notion of self. It's all manufactured. It's all about
processed.
Parallel processes in our body, tricking ourselves into thinking we have a self. Yeah. And then I've forgotten her name, I'm sorry, but there was a female academic who did a brilliant takedown article that really takes his argument apart. And even if I'm not claiming she's totally right, but I might look at it on the channel just to show you, it backs up your point about seeing an argument dissected and seeing the strengths and weaknesses, as opposed to what you get on YouTube as people shouting at each other from fixed positions.
Yeah.
But this woman is completely rejecting the argument put to her, but doing so in such a clinical, diagnostic way. It's an absolute joy to read. And further to what you're saying, one of the biggest kicks I get is when you're reading an article like that and you think as you're reading about a particular concept, but what if that concept relates to something else in this way? And then 2 paragraphs later, the author says that. And you're like, yes!
Because
because obviously you're following the argument properly and you're making your own. And that is just such a thrill. And again, because the whole cinematic experience is by its very nature much more passive, you're being given, it's your point about wonder, you're being given in a filtered form, whatever wonder Christopher Nolan felt about the Odyssey, you're experiencing that wonder, decaffeinated, filtered down, and pushed
passively
through a screen.
I think passivity is the key word here, because you can watch Nolan's film and you can like it or dislike it, then you go on Reddit or a film forum and you discuss it. I didn't like it, this happened, I didn't like the fact that Sydney Sweeney wasn't Calypso. You come up with this list of complaints, but you're not making connections, you're not creating. And I think that's the big issue nowadays with our digital culture. We have this kind of false sense of interactivity and a false sense of being able to create stuff, but where are the genuine connections? Where are the genuine connections you would get with a book or a piece of art, or even just disconnecting for a while, going for a walk?
Yeah, and I think,
Boredom in itself is a great creator.
yeah, and it was interesting because a few people on my channel in the past have said, what art do you do? Assuming I could paint or something, and I would always respond, I do. When I do birthday cards, I do stick figures, and honestly, it's like a 4-year-old's banged their head. I have zero artistic ability. It's less than zero. It's truly awful. But then what you're describing about how I described finding an argument in a complex philosophical work, you've defined that as creation. And I suppose that's my form of creativity.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Whether, if everyone went off and just spent all day painting or doing sculpture, I don't think you or I would complain for a second. But another way is to do what we're talking about in terms of argumentation, in terms of making literary linkages, in terms of being able to aesthetically appreciate and deconstruct something. All of these are a form of cerebral creativity.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Greeks. We'll keep it Greek. Is the difference between poiesis and techne? But the Greeks didn't have just production or craft. It's like that they had many different ways of saying craft. So philosophy and thinking is in itself production, is itself a craft. The work of art is a work of craft. Making something physical, making something technical is a work, and they had many ways of kind of delineating that. And it's something underlying it all is this idea of bringing something forth. Bringing something new forth, not rehashing, not recycling, remixing, which digital culture leans heavily into.
And maybe we could actually, maybe we could finish on the idea of bringing something forth, because the bastardized form of that is what Nolan does. Yeah. He said he just wanted to bring something new, which is a scintilla of the Heidegger idea of bringing forth. But actually, what Nolan wants to do is bring something forward that's new, inverted commas, but actually fulfills every preordained commodified notion that the Hollywood system will be able to pump out to people. Yeah. It's like ersatz wonder. It's fake wonder. Well, isn't that wonderful? No, if you actually know enough about the Odyssey, it's not wonderful at all. It's horrible.
Yeah, and it's gaslighting in a way. It's a form of gaslighting, because you're basically producing this and saying this is something new, this is something profound, in a way that people who don't know better are going to think this is something new and something profound. So that in itself is a thorn. And Horkheimer's point is that the process itself is blocking off the possibility of not just seeing the process for what it is, but also the possibility that something different or new can actually genuinely emerge.
Right. Well, I think on that note, I don't know about you, Stu. Yeah, I think that I always like to end on a pathetic, low, and soul-sapping, enervating note. We're meeting again on Friday, aren't we? So in 2 days' time from this, 48 hours from now, we're doing Proust, and we're going to try and pick up the pace for any Proustians out there. Stuart's got a bit of anxiety. I could happily sit in my own filth and just do a paragraph at a time.
Page by page, yeah.
Before we go, Tunji, nice to see you. Hope you come back again. Incontinent J in Texas says, Stuart, boxers or briefs?
Calvin Klein jockstrap.
Right, and on that note... All the very best, everyone. We'll see you, some of you, in 48 hours doing Proust.
Yeah. See you soon, guys.
Take care.
Bye now.